Why is it that despite having all of the information, having all of the resources, and trying repeatedly, millions of people like myself still struggle and fail to maintain lasting weight loss? This was me at 18 years old. It was a blistering summer day in Chicago, the kind of day that just feels heavy. My friends and I decided to take one last adventure to Chicago before going to college. But just a few moments into our walk, my thighs burned with unbearable pain. Feeling ashamed, I sat down, grabbed my cell phone, and waved my friends on, just trying to hide the pain and shame I was dealing with. Because by the time I was 18 years old, I weighed over 400 pounds. But I wasn't just carrying physical weight. I was carrying something much heavier. The pain of regret and shame, and this ultimate burden that something was fundamentally wrong with me. My body was breaking down. I was pre-diabetic, dangerously high blood pressure. Just the simple tasks of walking up a flight of stairs, tying my shoes, just standing felt like punishment. And I'd try to lose weight. I did it all. I went to doctors, personal trainers, dietitians, and occasionally I would lose weight. But the more I tried, eventually I would gain it back. And there was this point in time where I went to one of my endocrinologists, and he said to me, "David, these may just be the cards you were dealt. We may be able to put you in the Sahara Desert, and you may not lose weight." I left his office feeling utterly defeated because if a specialist was telling me there was no hope, how was I ever going to believe change was possible? I had an incredible childhood. My father is an interventional cardiologist. My mother was a nurse turned full-time mom. I grew up in a 7,000 square foot house with a full gym and an indoor basketball court. I had everything except the freedom from my body. Twice, my senior year of high school, I hit this point where looking at the next 30 years felt more painful than not living at all. But God had other plans for me. So how does a kid who has it all end up 400 pounds? Well, let's get real. My dad works 60 to 90 hours a week. He did his best, but he just couldn't set boundaries. And my mom loved me to death. And the way she showed love was to always say yes. And so when you have unlimited access to resources and zero restrictions, what does every kid want? Food and video games. And then you add the genetic component. I have a genetic disposition to hunger. I can eat a 16-ounce steak, a large salad, and a baked potato, and then 30 minutes later be saying to myself, I'm hungry. And I'd stay up late, playing video games, binging on candy, hiding the wrappers, but just not from my parents, but from myself. And you would think with your father as a cardiologist, my background in biomedical science, that I would choose an evidence-based approach to weight loss. But the truth is, diet culture doesn't care about evidence. It thrives on one thing: fear. It started innocently enough. let's do carb cycling. Those low carb days, you would lose weight a little faster, which was exciting. But that excitement subtly turned into suspicion. Maybe carbs really are the enemy. That suspicion turned to fear. Potatoes, bread, pasta, foods I loved, now became the enemy. And it didn't stop there. Then diet culture got even farther, where I was suggested that the villain of my story was insulin. It got me to do 5-day water fast, extreme fasting. The farther I fell down diet culture, the more I felt controlled by food, not empowered by it. Because as you go through this constant cycle of fear, because ultimately food does is, the fear of food became the fear of failure. The fear of failure became the fear of myself. And this constant fear led to hyper-restrictive mentalities that ultimately thrusted me into binging, leaving me feel ashamed and alone. Tony Robbins once said, "We transform our lives from one of two ways: desperation or inspiration." Desperation wasn't enough. It didn't work for me. Doctors told me constantly, you're pre-diabetic, you have high blood pressure, you're going to create long-term damage, but desperation wasn't enough. I got into my junior year of college where I got to become around some new friends. They were disciplined, growth-focused, and they handed me a book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And while reading that book, it profoundly changed, something clicked. It just profoundly changed my perspective. It was one of the things I was struggling with, because I was struggling with focusing on the finish line. Because the idea of losing 200 pounds felt so astronomically impossible, you don't really try. You may lose some weight, but over time you're like, I still have 170 pounds to go. And it just destroys your progress you're making. And so I decided to create small incremental steps and just not worry about the finish line and just stack small wins. So I set a goal to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week. That I could do. And before you know it, after about 25 weeks, I dropped 50 pounds. But then there was another major shift. I stopped asking myself, how do I lose weight? And I started asking myself, who am I? What do I value? What kind of person do I want to become? This was no longer physical. It was spiritual. I wasn't running from pain anymore. I was running towards purpose. 3 pillars to sustainable change. Number 1, ditch the diet mentality. Focus on changing your life. Diet mentality. Doing some over-restrictive program to hit some arbitrary weight loss goal to ultimately want to go back to your old way of living. It doesn't work. When you go back to your old patterns, you're only reinforcing not just a habit, but an identity that I can't handle life without this. Diet culture didn't teach me to nourish my body and have a good supportive relationship with food. It fundamentally taught me to fear everything. And that doesn't work. The biggest thing I learned was when you break down truth to trends, nourishment to punishment, and balance over restriction, everything changes. Pillar 2, why all diets work and what actually matters. If the goal is weight loss, all diets work for one simple reason. You built a calorie deficit. Now, all of these different diets, keto, paleo, carnivore, vegan, intermittent fasting, they're all strategies and vehicles that lead to that destination. But it's super important to know the process you take is sustainability. That is the key to how all this works. And as you go about through this process, you have to think to yourself, can I do this for the rest of my life? Because diet culture didn't fundamentally teach me how to create a long-term sustainable lifestyle. It taught me to fear it. And finally, medical tools are not cheating. They're life-changing. We need to have an open and honest conversation about obesity. Obesity is not just about willpower. It's about hunger. We all know it. We have friends that eat just a couple of bites and they feel satisfied. And you have other friends that can just eat and have this food noise that's relentless. It's not weakness. It's biology. Telling somebody who struggles with food noise and food hunger to just eat less and move more is like telling somebody to just breathe less and you're going to be fine. That's where these medical interventions come into play, like GLP-1 medications, weight loss surgery. They target the biological root of hunger. It's funny because I didn't use weight loss surgery or medications, but I'm an absolute supporter of them because it's not about doing it my way. It's about doing what's best for the individual and helping them support a healthier and happier them. These tools are like a seatbelt that as you're on your process for building a healthier and happier, more sustainable you, it gets the process more consistent. But, super warning, big warning, a lot of people who get caught up in medical interventions go from one pillar to the other, which is they go from overeating to undereating, leading to unintended muscle loss. So it's super important that you also attack pillar 2 if you're going to use medical interventions, because at the end of the day, weight loss, it's not about weight loss. It's about creating a healthier, stronger, and more vital you. If I've learned anything thriving down 200 pounds, it's this. Number 1, obesity isn't about willpower, it's about identity. Stop the quick fixes. Pick one habit that helps support the future you and do it consistently until it becomes who you are. Thank you.